Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com.
Do you love animals and want to make a real difference? At the Animal Alliance, we believe that no cat or dog should be euthanized due to overpopulation. Our solution is simple: spay and neuter. Visit theanimalalliance.org to see how you can help us create a future where every pet has a chance at life. Join our mission today at theanimalalliance.org.
Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And today I have a good friend on the show. I met him probably 6 years ago on our way to Wendover for a bachelor party. And that was a fun experience, a little crazy. It was something I'd never done before. And it was fascinating because I was able to hang out with people. I'm pretty sure I was the poorest person in the RV at the time. And the cool part about that was that I got to spend time with individuals who really helped me expand my vision of what is possible and what could be possible. And Chris Reese is one of those people who he is like, I think, a child, and he sees the world as his playground. And he just likes to have lots of fun, do what he's passionate about, and enjoy his time while he's doing it. And so that's why I'm excited. And we got reconnected here in the last, few months or so. And he's been through a world of change and a big, long journey over the last few years, ups and downs in personal stuff, business stuff, the whole 9 yards. And so that's why it's finally time to really have him on the show. And let's talk about, what's the meaning behind it all? What's the meaning that he's found in it? And how can his story help you either avoid some of the things that maybe you shouldn't have done, and also keep doing or start doing the things that he's got down on lockdown, to where he could lose a multi-million-dollar business and within a year recreate another one, because that's where his mind's at. He just knows how to do it. And if you're not there yet, don't you want to be there, to where no matter what's going on in your personal life, you have the ability to lose everything and rebuild it almost overnight because of who you are, the relationships you've built, and the knowledge that you've gained. So that's why I'm so excited to have him on here, because he's got an incredible story. I don't want to ruin it anymore. But Chris, thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to share value with my audience.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
By the way, I don't think that you were the poorest one in the RV. You were the richest one in knowledge in the RV.
Maybe. I sure gained a lot. I gained a lot from that trip. In fact, yeah, we can talk about some of the things that have kind of guided me since that trip. But go ahead and share with us like your early childhood. How did you get to where you are? Why did you choose to become who you are? And what were some of those pitfalls that you faced along the way?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Washington State, basically Portland, Oregon, just right across the river over there. So Vancouver wasn't exactly the most sought after city by any means. It wasn't, there was no real wealth up there in that area, at least at the time. And we all kind of just grew up in what I would consider poverty to today's standards. But it was normal. It was very normal to us. Everyone's parents, they're all working, they're 12-hour days to try to just, make rent. And my family was definitely no different than that. I had a pretty good childhood, growing up until about 2001 or so, where, the economy shifted a little bit, and both my parents lost their jobs, and we just became very, fighting for everything we could to even, have dinner on the stove at night. Grew up in a trailer my whole life, which is, I'm pretty proud of that to this day, actually. It taught me a lot in life, just not to, have to have luxury in every aspect of life. Um, Went to high school. I was a I wasn't exactly the best kid out there for sure. I was definitely the one that everyone warned their kids in the neighborhood not to go hang out with me. I was a little bit of a troublemaker back then. About 12, 13 years old, stole a car when I was waiting for the school bus to show up in the morning. It was cold. Hey, that person just went over there and warmed up their car. Hey, you want to go take this thing for a spin around the neighborhood? He was driving it, went and wrecked it into some random guy's truck, and got in a little bit of trouble for that one. Yeah, I didn't have the best of name. And then high school came along. I wasn't, I think a lot of people struggle with trying to find who they are in that early teenage stage, and I was definitely no different. Definitely was still getting in some trouble, wasn't showing up to school, got expelled my freshman year in high school. And then second week, sophomore year, I said, forget this, I'm done, I'm out. Ended up dropping out. My parents, they were a little upset with me, as you can imagine. They said, if you're going to drop out, you're going to get a full-time job. Well, I wanted to prove them wrong, so I went and got 2 full-time jobs. I was working 80 hours a week at the age of 15, because back then, in Washington, we could work at 15. And, 16 came around, bought my first car, and I felt like at the time making all sorts of money. Which I guess back then for a 15-year-old making, $6,000-$7,000 a month, that's a lot of money for a 15-year-old. And ended up moving out to California, and my friend hooked me up with a job out on some wind turbine fields. So I went out there and was building these big, huge wind turbines out in Mojave Desert, and I hated it. I didn't know what the heck I was doing with my life. 21 years old, down there, no family, just working my life away, making decent money. And I ended up quitting, and I just started having fun. Lost everything. Lost my BMW that I had, lost my motorcycle that I had. I had to call and ask my parents for money so I can go back home and move back in with them. At 21 years old, that was pretty embarrassing. And then, then I went to work for a little company that was seriously making cardboard boxes. And I went back from making $80,000, $90,000 a year at 21 years old to making $12.50 an hour at 21 years old. And I hated it. Then I got a call from a buddy. Hey, do you want to come work at the railroad? The railroad? Sure, I'll come interview for it. I didn't know that he was hooking me up with the engineer conducting position. Ended up getting that job. So I was an engineer conductor at 22 years old, operating, those legit trains that you see going down the railway. And that was the coolest thing. I wasn't making much money, a lot of hard labor when I was out switching the rail cars around, but, it had its benefits, good retirement plan. So I thought, at the time, because it was a union. And then I was delivering some rail cars to a chemical plant in Portland. And I was telling him, like, you know what, I just don't like this job anymore. And he comes up and he's like, hey, Chris, this guy's, he's retiring in a few months. Why don't you come in and talk to Brian? Well, I don't know what you guys do. Well, we're just a sulfuric acid supplier. We sell all the sulfuric acid to major battery operation. They manufacture batteries and whatnot. And okay, I'll come in and talk. So go in there, I get the job. Quit the railroad. I feel like I'm kind of making some good money again in life, getting back up on my feet. And met my, my first wife during that time, during that transition. And life was just going great. And I am just someone that loves to, self-teach myself. So I'm supposed to be transloading from rail cars into semi-trucks, the sulfuric acid. And so I'm doing that, but I'm kind of bored. So I go over into the chemical lab, where one of my buddies is working, and I'm just hanging out, learning, watching, trying to study exactly what he's doing. And he, after about, I don't know, probably about 6, 7 months of me doing that, I was pretty familiar with the operations in the lab. And the chemical plant or the plant manager comes out. He goes, Chris, what are you doing in here? This is not your job. You're not allowed to be in here. And I was like, oh, well, I'm learning, this is what I'm wanting to do. And my buddy, he sticks up for me. He's like, oh, so he tests me, what I know. And he's like, oh, you really do understand this stuff. Well, there's a position open up in 2 different places to go be a chem tech 2. And I was like, okay, where are we talking? He goes, you want to go to San Francisco or Utah? And I go, where the hell is Utah? I didn't know where Utah was. I never heard of Utah. It's like, okay, let me go check out San Francisco. So I flew out there for 2 weeks. Not my vibe. Come out here to Utah for about a week, and I call him and say, I want this spot. And so, okay, pack your bags. We'll move you down there. We'll get you moved, but we'll pay for all your expenses to move down there. And by the way, with that position down there, you're only working 4 days a week, and you're only having to work 5 hours a day. And this is your salary, by the way. And I go, oh my gosh, I just got fed the silver spoon. I can't believe this. And so come down here, and because I'm not working that much, I get pretty bored. And so I'm sitting over there talking with some of the guys at the oil refinery that we're supplying the sulfuric acid to. I go, I'm really bored. Do you guys know anybody that is selling a business or know of a business that I can start up? And this guy pops up, well, you could buy my hydroseed company. I go, what the hell is hydroseeding? And he goes, oh, well, here's this. I go around and I hydroseed these people's lawns. I spray grass in their lawns. I'm like, all right, well, give me some details. Like, well, I have a job tomorrow. Why don't you come out and, see kind of what I do and see if it's something you're interested in. So I go out there to this job site with them, to this house. And it's just a normal sized lot. And he spends about 30 minutes hydroseeding this. And I go, oh, wow, that was pretty quick. How much was your materials on this? He goes, oh, it's about $80. Okay. And you took 30 minutes. How much did you charge them? $450. Like, okay, that's a pretty good return. I like it. So tell me, what's the details? How much do you want for the company, the equipment, whatever? He goes, well, it's not really a company because this is my side gig. This is just just to make money on the side so I can go out and get some beers after work. Okay, what am I getting? He goes, you'll get the company name, the Google phone number. I'll give you this little hydroseeder and the website. I'm like, okay, how much? $5,000. I'm like, I don't know if I can afford that right now. Dang it, like I'm getting married in a couple months. I'm closing on my first house in a couple of months. Let me go home. Let me talk with my fiance. Go home. She says, no, we can't do that. We can't afford it right now. We have all this. And I'm sitting there. I couldn't sleep at night. So the next day, what do? I went and wrote a check behind her back. So I went and bought this little company, right? Or this little business, that operation that he has going. And I was like, I have to make money before she finds out this money is out of the account. Can you wait a couple weeks to cash this check? It's good, but I don't want her to see it until I start making money doing it. He goes, absolutely. So I go home, I start researching how to do all this. And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard Google ads. Okay, let's figure out how to do this. So I start researching how to throw these Google ads up there. And so I threw some Google ads up. I was like, okay, $30 a day. I think that's a lot of money, but I can afford it. And I started getting call after call after call. So in 1 week, not only was I able to make that $5,000 back, I made an additional like $4,000. So I made $9,000 my very first week doing this. And so I had to go to my fiance and go, hey, just let you know, I did go behind your back on this, but this is what my returns have been so far in 1 week. She goes, why would you go behind my back? Why would you do that? But how much did you make? I'm like, this. I'm like, I'm sorry. I went behind your back. Not cool. I get it. So I did that for about a summer, because you can only hydro seed lawns during good spring days or good warm days. And I made, decent money, and I'm still working at the oil refinery. And winter comes around, and just, I'm beating myself up. I want to do this full time. What am I doing working for somebody else? This is not me. So the next spring comes around. I started up again the hydro seeding, and at this time, my wife is pregnant with our daughter, and I'm just working like crazy. I'm getting up at 3:30 in the morning to go to the oil refinery and work. I'm off by 8:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock, and then I'm working hydro seeding lawns until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then I have to go home and bill. So I'm not being done until 11 o'clock, and then waking up at 3:30 again the next day. I'm exhausted. So I go into the work one day in May, which is 2 months before my daughter's born, and I start running all my tests. And I didn't realize, and was pretty tired, so I'm gonna close my eyes for a minute. I need some sleep. And as I'm running tests, because of the way the systems ran out there, all the sulfuric acid is running from the rail cars into the refinery, and I'm testing it there. I fall asleep. Equipment fails out there. I spilled 13,000 gallons of sulfuric acid on the ground. And I go out there, I try to what am I going to do? Let's cover this up. I'm just going to go ahead and dilute this with water. It'll be fine. No one's going to be hurt, nothing like that. It was fine. Get a call, 1 a.m. the next morning. Hey, Chris, the whole ground out here is bubbling. What's going on? I'm like, all right, well, I better come clean to you guys now. This is what happened. We know, we saw it all in the cameras. Come in the morning, we need to have a talk. Got fired from that job. And I'm like, it's okay. I have this new business starting up. So I go full force at this hydro seeding company. Really not knowing what the hell I'm doing still. But so we make it through the winter the summer. And I had my wife quit her accounting job. She was an accountant for Traeger headquarters. We were doing great together without this business. And I was like, you know what? Business is good. Stay home with the kid. We're okay. Winter comes around. Well, what happens with winter? I'm not able to hydro seed anymore. And we have a little bit. We have like $30,000 or $40,000 to our name, which, that should last people a few months usually. December comes around, and I don't know what it was. Bill after bill after bill kept coming in. I'm like, we only have $12,000 to our name. I have 4 months until I get to start this business up again. I'm gonna have to go to work for somebody else. I'm sitting there, I couldn't sleep. And I went and talked with Travis Brady's cousin, Chris. And I was like, Chris, you run a very successful company. What can I do? This is what's going on. He goes, the best piece of advice I can give you is go sit in front of the computer and just look at the screen. Do not get up from there. You look at the screen and you start researching anything and everything you can about your business. And I'm like, well, that's not going to do me any good. I can't do it right now. He goes, you will come up with something. Sit there in front of the screen and research as much as you can. I do. I didn't really understand what he was saying. And then I was driving back home one day and I go, why is there so much hydro seed along all these roadways? What is going on here? Why am I not getting calls to come out here and do this work on these big, huge roadway projects? And so I go home and I research it. And I just dive deeper and deeper and deeper into all this and understanding more like, oh, I'm just doing this as a side gig. This is a real business. And I came across the DOT's website, and I found where all these projects were bidding for these roadways, these new highways and roadway projects. We go, holy crap, this is insane. And then I'm digging further into it. Well, I didn't realize that all federal granted money, every penny where it's spent, has to be public knowledge. So they have to actually post it. And I found on these projects in the past, these exact dollar amounts. And I'm like, hydro seeding, they're charging this much for this kind of acreage. Okay, there's this project over here bidding. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to throw a bid out for this to these general contractors that I see that are bidding this. But I realized there's certain scopes of work that you have to actually follow, or that you have to include with your bid. So I'm like, I know hydro seeding, but what the heck is all this other stuff with this environmental compliance stuff that I have to include with my bid for my scope of work? All right, well, I know the numbers. I'm just going to plug them in and deduct 10% from what they spent last time and see, go from there. Well, my very first bid that I put out, it was like $380,000. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. What am I doing? I have $12,000 to my name. I don't know what any of this stuff is. If I get this, I'm screwed. This is embarrassing. I get a call 2 weeks later from who is still my best client to this day. And he goes, hey, Chris, just let you know, we're going to award you the projects. This is down in St. George, Utah. We're rushing to push this forward. We need you and your crews down there to get going on all this in 3 weeks. Oh, sounds good. Send the contract over. Got off the phone. Oh my God, what did I just do? What did I just do to myself? I don't even know what I'm doing.
Millions of cats and dogs are euthanized every year because there simply aren't enough homes. At the Animal Alliance, we're tackling this issue head on with accessible spay and neuter services. Your support can help us save lives. Visit theanimalalliance.org to learn more about how you can contribute. Together, we can make a difference.
Contract? How am I going to sign a contract? I don't have, commercial insurance yet. I don't have employees. I don't have money to hire these employees. So I start calling around, got a Amex credit card, and then the next day I'm freaking out saying, I think I'm going to have to tell them I can't do this project. But I get a call, and it's a manufacturer. It says, hey, Chris, we just found out that you were awarded this project. We've never worked with you. We want to work with you on supplying some of your materials for you. I'm like, great. Send me over your guys' bid for this. Got the bid back from them, and they gave me 30-day terms. I'm like, oh, I can use other people's money to do this. I've heard of this before. Ding. So I was like, I'm going to do this. I think I can do this. And little did I know, I still didn't know how to install some of the stuff on this new roadway project that I was helping them out with. And I call up some of my friends. Hey, do you know anybody looking for work? Yeah, my son. He needs a job. Okay, cool. Tell him to send his resume over to me, even though I didn't care about a resume. I just wanted someone that breathed and could maybe work. So call and talk to him. Hey, do you have a friend that needs a job? He's like, I do have a friend that needs a job. Okay, great. Are you okay with out of town work? Yes. So a week later, I had a beat up old Ford truck that was hauling a trailer full of equipment and materials down south, 4 hours away. And I have a trailer with my truck heading south. And I look in my rearview mirror and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling so good about myself. This is awesome. And I go, is he hanging out the side of the window going down the freeway? What is going on back there? So I call him. He goes, oh, yeah, well, the defroster doesn't work in this truck and the windshield wipers quit working and it's snowing. So I'm out here with a squeegee clearing the windshield to keep up with you. You got to get down there to this job. I'm like, oh my gosh. All right. Well, I'm glad these guys are dedicated. This is really embarrassing. I don't have any money to get a good working truck, but we're going to do this. We're doing this. And we get down there, pull up to this job site, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm YouTubing how to install this stuff on the way down. I don't know what I'm doing. And they come up to me. We're all getting on our hard hats and vests on the side of this highway. And they come up to me. Okay, Chris, where do we start? I'm like, what do you mean, where do you start? How do you not know where to start? Right here and go down there. And I'm like, I'm scared. I'm kind of treating them in a bad way because I wasn't confident with myself with it. And they're like, well, I don't even know what we're doing. I'm like, okay, well, this is what we're doing. You put it up like this and this and that. Well, I'm sitting in my truck trying to look at these plans, not understanding it, and then UDOT pulls up. And they go, oh, hey, sorry, we were supposed to survey this for you. We'll have survey out here done for you in 10 minutes. I was like, yeah, I was wondering, we were trying to figure out where everything was going, just couldn't do it. Well, they've staked it all out for us. And then he comes up, or all my guys, they start working, they come up and like, hey, we're running into this issue. What do you want us to do? And I get out and I go look at him like, the hell do you think you want to do with this? Just get it done. And I just turn around. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What I am way over my head. I'm working with the government. I don't know what I'm like, a lot of money on the line here. Anyways, we ended up finishing that project. Went well. And I really learned a lot from that. And I was able to, within that first year, I got a lot of, these government contracts lined up with the DOT and the military, doing this exact same thing. I think in our first year of me doing that, because that was in January, I think we had done like almost $3 million in that first year of starting the government work. And we did good. We were one of the fastest companies up and coming in 2019. And we were just blowing the doors off everything. We were taking companies that were doing this for 20 plus years. They were out. They were shutting their doors because of us. I came in and completely disturbed the whole industry. Then went through a really tragic divorce, unfortunately, which a lot of us, we've all experienced, but sometimes unfortunate things happen when there's a lot to lose. We had almost 700 employees working for us at this time, and things were very, I was in Florida at one of our vacation houses, and I caught wind of something, and I flew out here quietly, went to this job site, this massive, it was almost $1 billion roadway project that we were a main subcontractor on. And go down there and DOT comes up, please show up. The employee's like, what are you doing here? Who are you? And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And the DOT and the GC that I was working for, they said, they fired you. What are you doing here? I'm like, what do you mean they fired me? This is my company. No, Lauren, your wife called in and said that you're a rogue employee, and if we see you out here, to have you removed from the job site. I'm like, excuse me, what is happening here? Like, we have talked. You know that I'm the owner of this company. I'm the founder. I started all this from nothing. Like, this is mine. This is all of my equipment. These are all my employees out here. And anyways, I worked some things out with the DOT, and unfortunately, some of the employees, it was just a really bad time for some of these employees down there. They were very confused, not fair to them, what was going on. And I took some of my employees that I had from the very beginning that knew who I was. So because of the situation, we're going down there on Saturday. We're grabbing all this equipment and we're bringing it back to Salt Lake. We are not going to be doing this project anymore. We're going to have to shut the doors. Without notice, shut the doors on everybody. Millions, tens and tens of millions of dollars were owed to us and to suppliers. And all these employees, they all lost their jobs, all these families, I was very embarrassed for a long time, couldn't show my face out in public for months. I didn't know who I might run into out there. Oh, yeah. And when I was on my way back from Florida, found out that, that my ex-wife now, she had emptied out all personal and business accounts, left me the $500 to my name. I didn't have a place to live anymore. As I'm trying to live here, go over to get a hotel, living on a credit card. Okay, starting it back up. So I ended up starting the company back up again. And while I'm still going through this 3.5-year divorce, wasn't sure if I could grow this business or not, if it would get taken from me, what was going to happen, nothing, bankruptcies, who knows? We had a lot of lawsuits coming at us because all these manufacturers and suppliers, they're out tens of millions of dollars because we shut down the company. and I wasn't structured right. And so they were coming after me personally. It wasn't cool. It was scary, embarrassing, getting served papers every single day with a new lawsuit. Devastating. But I'm still going to go out there and I'm starting this thing over. Went out there, started hydroseeding yards again, bidding on these government contracts. And, I rebuilt really quick. Within a year, I was almost, right back to where I was before within 1 year. So I created an 8-figure business in 1 year. I was so proud of myself with it. And then, still going through the divorce and, some custody issues, mental health, that becomes a big part of, how you're operating day-to-day life for sure. And when you're not able to see your kid and you're fighting over that stuff, that really, weighs down on you. So I ended up shutting the company down again because I just wasn't mentally there. So then, I get bored. I had a little bit of cash to, go do what I want with for, I guess however long I wanted, but I was bored and I had no purpose. So started the business back up again. But this time, not only am I going to do the hydroseeding and those other scope that came with it, I'm going to do some environmental consulting for the military. I'm doing environmental consulting for, all the cities, municipalities, the local governments. Oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to start up a traffic sign company too at the same time. Let's go ahead and start installing these huge sign structures over these freeways. So got all that going. Everything's going great. And to this day, everything is still going good. But, the biggest lesson that I took away from all that was I wasn't structured right. And when you're not structured right in business, and if you go through any lawsuit, you're going to get sued personally and you lose everything. I lost McLaren's. I went from having private chefs in McLaren's and vacation houses everywhere to, losing everything, just watching these cars get towed away by, the state because, it was just bad stuff, losing houses. But, if you push through hard enough, I really believe that if no one can take your knowledge away, you can do it the same every time, but even cleaner the next time. That's where I am today.
Hey, well, I'm so grateful for you sharing that. I have too many notes we're not going to cover it all, but I'm going to try and cherry pick the things that are going to be highlights. And we may just have to have you on again, Chris, which is not a bad thing. I enjoy talking to you, but these are areas that I think some of the people that do listen to this podcast that I know of, they are in trades. Okay. They're in the trades world and they're doing it house by house, or they're doing it small commercial job by small commercial job, rather than going directly into the government contracting. So that's an area that I think very few people are aware of on how to increase the value of their company or to get bigger jobs quickly. And so talk a little bit about that for a second. Like where would somebody go if somebody wanted to just start to learn their industry from a government contracting perspective, and what types of contracts are out there? Where would they look to find what federal money has been spent on what and how much and who gets the job, and where would they go to find that information? Or is go ahead. I was just gonna say, is that a better maybe you need to create a course that just teaches this? I'm not kidding. We talked about this before. Chris needs to monetize this knowledge, but this is legit. Like, there's a lot of companies out there that fail. They're on that edge and they don't know where the money is. The government keeps printing trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, and they keep giving it out to these different things, but they don't know how to classify themselves to be the recipient of that money. And you can do like the government grants and the government gifts and the PPP loans and all that. Like, you can do all that crap. But at the end of the day, like, exchanging service, they're signing billions of dollars to the people who are willing to fulfill that. And so how do we fulfill as a people? How do we find that niche and go do it? And maybe it might be a brand new company that you don't think you need to start, But now you're in traffic signs. Now you're in all these other areas where you're making it. You're like, okay, well, I did one vertical. I can do government contracting work in all of these verticals as long as I know what to look for and can transfer my skills easily. So I want you to talk about that. Like, where does somebody go to discover that information?
Yeah, it's actually really simple. Every state has a bid letting site. So, like, forget about the sam.gov or whatever you might hear like on movies. That is a real thing, but that don't mess around with those. Go to your actual local government. You can look on their cities on your city sites, websites for all these bid opportunities. You can look on the DOT websites, and all that information's on there. And actually, it does kind of guide you step by step in what you have to do to be able to actually bid on these projects, whether you're going to do it as a general contractor or a subcontractor. I would totally recommend, if you're going into government contracting, do not do any kind of general contracting for them until you're very comfortable with understanding how those contracts work, because you will get eaten alive and they won't stop.
Imagine a world where every pet is wanted and loved. The Animal Alliance is making this vision a reality by focusing on spay and neuter programs to control the pet population. You can be part of this life-saving mission. Visit theanimalalliance.org to find out how you can help. Every little bit makes a big difference.
They don't care if you bid this job for $10 million and it's costing you $30 million. They will make you and force you to follow through with your contract, or they will come after your money and hire the next guy to do it. So I would start off definitely with subcontracting, and you can get on there and you can kind of figure out, you can see all these numbers on these websites, on these bid opportunities, but start with looking at the general contractors and calling them and having just a conversation with them. So many of these guys, the estimators over at these big companies, they enjoy having conversations with new upcoming subcontractors. They've had bad experiences with a lot of subs. And so, hey, look, maybe if I can work with this guy enough, this guy will be a good sub to me. So they will be more than happy to tell you where your numbers land. Hey, next one, bring it up just a little bit, you're really low. Or, hey, you're high. And also, we're going to use you for this. Are you sure that you want to not exclude this from your work? So say if you're going to go out there and install a new fire hydrant on this road, well, I don't want to be responsible for excavating this big hole so that we can install this. So, you can exclude that because that might cost you a lot of money. You don't realize that it's cheaper for somebody else to do that. But you can, that just is stuff that comes along with years of knowledge. But definitely start with your local websites.
Awesome. I love it. Because I think that, I have people in my mind that I'm going to introduce you to that I think need to know this information on how to get those types of jobs, rather than, not that they shouldn't keep doing the residential jobs, but if you can go do some of these bigger commercial jobs or government jobs, it's just an easier path to wealth in a lot of cases. One other thing that back in the day, I would say you were proud of, it ultimately bit you in the ass, but the fact that you were a woman-owned company, right? She had 51% of the company. And so, yeah, you were the founder. Yeah, you were the quote unquote owner, but you intentionally put yourself in a different position with the intention of, and correct me if I'm wrong, and this is my memory of what happened, yes. But you had discovered that if you were a female-owned company, then you could, because of the DEI regulations in the government, then you could actually bid higher, like 10% or something higher than what everybody else was bidding, and they had to award the woman-owned business a contract over the male-owned business a contract. Am I missing steps here, or is that fairly accurate? And you clean up what I messed up.
So I won't confirm or deny that's what happened and how it happened.
Okay.
Because when you go to apply for a DBE, you get investigated by the state very heavily. You get interviewed by them to make sure there is no fraud.
So allegedly, this might happen.
Who knows? I'm not so sure, but
okay, fair enough.
So DBE stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and so with government federally funded money, 7% of all this money has to go to a minority owned business. So as long as it's 51% owned by a minority, such as a female, it's not just 7% more that you can bid 100% more, 200% more. Because say if they're not able to, nobody else with a DBE bid on this job, they have to use a DBE on every job. Nobody else bid this, and this company just, instead of bidding $100, they just bid $10,000. We have to use them, or else nobody gets this job. So that's where that kind of comes into play with the DBE.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not suggesting fraud or being unethical with this behavior, but I do think that the fact is laws were written for us to use them. I actually believe the IRS code, like if you look at the IRS code, there's like a few pages that talk about how to pay taxes, but most of the IRS code is how not to pay taxes. Same thing with the laws, and it's our own ignorance and our lack of understanding which hurts us the most. They're writing laws in a way that could benefit us if we chose to use them in the way that benefit us. But if we choose not to, then we don't get the benefit of the laws, right? So I'm not looking at this as a period of exploitation. I'm just saying, even if you were to bid the same amount, the right amount, you're more likely to win the job if you're fulfilling a certain requirement. You should know how to win your jobs, right? That's a business practice. You got to know how to win your jobs. Now, you can do that by gouging and doing things that are maybe more fraudulent than just like, hey, I want to be more and I want to put myself in a better position to be more successful as a company. So I'm not talking about anything illegal here. And allegedly,
yeah, please nobody do that.
Yeah.
Be legit about it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, if you're doing bad business, it catches up to you. So that's not the point of the conversation. But really, just wanted to say, like, this is something that you need to learn the rules. You need somebody who understands the rules to teach you the rules, or like Chris, I mean, you figure stuff out. And that's the cool thing about what you did. I want to go through just a few of these things that you had experience working in highly regulated things early on. So wind turbines, 21 years old, highly regulated, most likely government contracts. Railroad, union, very tied into the government, very regulated. Like, again, these are all things that, although it didn't seem like it was building to working with the government, and although he didn't really fully know what he was going to end up in, then he goes to be a chem tech. Then he totally screws that up. Like, falls asleep on the job, screws it up. I don't remember that happening in the news, but I'm sure it was news.
Yeah, it was on the news.
Right? So, like, when you think about that, are you willing to fail forward? Are you willing to go forward? And sometimes you have to be dumb enough to succeed. And I mean that respectfully, Chris, because I wish I was dumb enough to succeed sometimes. Sometimes I overthink. One of my biggest problems in business that I faced early on was that I was too scared of making mistakes. I was too scared of biting off more than I could chew. I was too scared of doing that and said, everything's got to be perfect. I don't want compliance to hurt me. I don't want anybody to have any reason to hurt me ever. And so I'm going to never try anything new because I only want to try stuff that's been way, way, way developed and everybody knows it's safe. The problem is you're always on the tail end of business at that point. You're never going to be a forger in the business if you're it sounds bad saying that, but you're never going to be the person who carries a flag into a new area of business or does something a new way if you're too scared of making mistakes. Like Elon Musk, one of his best things is that he's willing to make mistakes and make them public and share it because, sure, come watch him burn. He's built the biggest two companies in the world, basically, successively, just doing that. So just thinking about that, I want to also bring up where was it here? When you were being raised, because you're who you are now, who my experience you now versus even 5 years ago is different, right? You have a different energy about you. I feel like my experience of you now is way more humble, way more aware of other people, way more compassionate towards other people's perspectives, way more dedicated to doing the right thing the right way first. And I'm not saying that you were doing the wrong thing previously, but I would consider this not a good boss, right? If somebody is, we have these things that come from our childhood. You grew up in a trailer park. in poverty where there's a certain energy of how we treat people, how we get along, what's expected of that. And so when you become a boss, you wear, or not now necessarily, but you wore in that beginning phase when you didn't know what you were doing, based on your own rehearsal of what happened, you took a more masculine, aggressive tone towards the people who had trusted you and chose to work with you, to mask your own insecurities. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
you're completely right.
And so that's not necessarily like who Chris is. That's who Chris became out of his childhood and the experiences he had. What really helped you transition from that way of being into the more compassionate, understanding? Hey, I'm not going to be that way anymore. I'm going to treat people with more respect, more awareness, more compassion, rather than the hey, you're an idiot for not knowing what I don't know. You know?
I think it was definitely an ego thing, and a not so much of a confidence thing. I had no confidence, but I had an ego, and I was trying to prove to everybody that what I came out of to what I did build was like, oh, I'm way better than you. Like, whatever, I'm smarter than you because I was able to do this so quick. And then after losing it all, it really is a humbling experience. And then when you do rebuild everything again, you sit back and realize, after everything I just lost and went through, I never want that to happen to somebody else again. And then you really, when you get to a certain point, you don't have to have an ego anymore. Be very confident in yourself. But, and then at that point, when you have that confidence and you have everything that you want and truly need, and when you start to see people's smiles brighten, when you get to help them a little bit, it's like, it just grows. It's like the Grinch, right? When he helped little Lucy out, whatever her name was, and he grew that big heart, and he became, just this soft teddy bear, right? And I think that's what really happens is when you start to see I can help people out, it softens you, and you realize that there's a much bigger purpose for everything.
So when you had all those 700 employees, what was it that was keeping you detached from recognizing what you were offering? Because obviously I've only had to let go 2 people out of my business, mostly because I've not really hired 700 people, right? If I had to hire 700 people, I'd have to let more people go probably. Yeah. But it's hard. Like, it's like recognizing, hey, I've got to cut off this person's income because it's not what our company needs right now. For me, that's never a fun conversation, even though like all the corporate coaches, they say, oh, well, you're going to let them go do what's better for them. You're cutting them free. Obviously they're not, whatever. There's all the different ways you can gaslight yourself into being okay with firing somebody. And, that's okay. But for me, it still never feels good. Like that conversation never feels good. And so there's a come to Jesus moment where your ego has to take the back seat and you have to deal with reality. And like, that's a hard thing to face. But what helped you through that transition of like having to just make that decision?
I'm still not comfortable letting anybody go ever. And I don't do any of the firing anymore either. I have people to do that for me. I don't like high tension conflicts like that anymore. I never did.
I was going to say, did you ever really? Because based on your history, you avoided a lot of tough conversations. You did what you wanted anyways, and then you hoped it didn't happen. You didn't have to talk about it. But then the thing that I find positive in that series is it doesn't, based on your representation of your history, it doesn't ever seem like you were somebody to avoid responsibility when the responsibility was there. So you at least kept a responsibility. I don't know if I would say you kept accountability most of the time, not from what you told me, but accountability in my mind is like you proactively let people know what's going on versus responsibility. Hey, yeah, you caught me. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to make it right. Those are two different words.
I definitely try to wear the world on my shoulders, and people have said, quit doing it to the extreme that I do. I take responsibility for everything that could go wrong. It's just who I am. I don't think I ever really want that to change, because it just does really help you grow as a person too. But you do have to realize that not everything is really your responsibility.
Well, I think that sometimes taking responsibility can bleed into taking almost an overconfidence, because you take responsibility for it. Then you think, oh, well, if I'm responsible, I'm going to do what I want to do, rather than following other protocols or whatever, because you think, well, I'm the responsible one. And so there's this is where the ego and the confidence really start to need to be put in check, where it's like, yes, you're the responsible one, but also that doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want. And I think sometimes in life, parenting, I'm trying to learn this with my kids, where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm the adult. Yes, I'm the responsible one, whatever. But I still have a duty to respect my 7-year-old son or my 5-year-old son, and still treat them with respect, even though at the end of the day, if they break somebody's thing, I'm the one who has to pay for it. Like, I am the responsible one, but that doesn't mean that I have the authority to be the dominant one, or the one that is like, I don't have the authority to be abusive of that responsibility. And I think that's where, in a broader perspective, not just talking about business, but those are things that I'm still trying to learn. And that's why I'm kind of asking all these questions, because it's maybe not in the same area of business, but there's aspects of who we are that as we get older, we get to kind of weed out, and we get to identify and see how we want to move forward. And parenting is where, for me, it's like, okay, just because I'm the responsible one, I can take ownership for whatever happens. How am I teaching my kids to be respectful with that responsibility, to be accountable, to really care for the people around me as a leader, and not take too much onto my shoulders, and allow them to also be responsible and accountable for their choices, rather than me saying, oh, well, I'm going to be the one responsible if you break a car, so now I'm going to over control you so that you don't break a car, rather than saying, well, I will be responsible, but ultimately you need to have some responsibility for your actions as well. And so I'm going to give you some freedom. They say enough rope to hang yourself, right? I'm going to give you some freedom so that you have the taste of responsibility as well, and that I don't take too much control over the situation because I'm responsible. Like, it's ultimately an ego thing. I don't want to look bad, so now I'm going to make sure that you don't make me look bad, rather than I don't look bad if you choose to do something that's not how I would do it.
Right.
So anyways, that's kind of where my mind is at, is thinking about that conversation in parenting.
Parenting is fun, man. I love it. Isn't it the greatest thing?
It definitely stretches me more than anything else that I do in my life.
You learn a lot from those little shit.
I'll say that. I'll say that. Hey, we are out of time, but we could definitely, I have so many more notes here. We're not going to get to all of them. I'd love to have you back on, Chris, and hear more of the details of your story. And I want to get some more answers to these questions. But if somebody wanted to reach out to you, if they wanted help with either understanding how to navigate, where to find government contracts in any type of trade, what's the process, what are things to look out for in government contracts, what are some red flags, what are some things, hey, talk about it this way, or maybe they just want to better understand how to build a company and manage people and how to do it the right way, how would they reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to sit down and talk with anybody, answer whatever questions that they have. I mentor people all the time with this sort of thing. That's kind of my passion, is helping people actually start up their entities and grow their new businesses that they're wanting to start. So if anybody ever has questions, you can definitely reach me at Chris_Reese 704 on Instagram, or you can email me at chris@launchprosolutions.com. And we can also help you out with, starting your entities as well. That's a new corporate structuring company that we had started up last year, and just to make sure everyone is protected, and we'll never go through a personal lawsuit like I went through.
Awesome. I love it. Hey, thank you so much. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy show.
Preventing pet overpopulation is the key to ending pet euthanasia. The Animal Alliance is committed to spay and neuter programs to save lives. Visit theanimalalliance.org today to support our mission. Together, we can ensure that every pet has a chance at a happy, healthy life.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.